This lesson is equivalence and reducing fractions using board number 3. And you can also use the blue and red pond markers, or you can also use the dry erase markers and the cloth. So let's start off by trying to find equivalent fractions for 1/3. So what we're going to do is we're going to look on this board and we're going to try to find any column that has a 1 and a 3 in it. So obviously the first column here has a 1 and a 3. So I'm just going to mark them with my marker so you can easily see. So that fraction, if we use it as a fraction, would be 1/3. So if we go along this row and this row, we can find equivalent fractions are 2/6, 3/9, 4/12, and so on. This also works if we find them in the opposite direction, and we can do 1 and 3 here, and you can see 2/6, 3/9, 4/12, but that's a little bit harder for students to understand. So if we stay in this row, I think that would be easier for them. Let's also use that same process to find an equivalent fraction for 4/6. So we find a 4 and a 6 in the same column under the header 2, and we can go across and we can see 6/9, 8/12, 10/15, and we can go in the other direction as well, and we can find that 2/3. And that is actually the reduced fraction for 4/6. The same process works in reverse if we're trying to find equivalent fractions for improper fractions. So let's suppose we have to find an equivalent fraction for 3/2. So what we do is we find 3 and a 2 in the same column. So here we find 3 and 2, and you'll just have to tell students that they are inverted or flipped. So it looks like 2/3, but in their mind they have to understand that 3/2 is the fraction. So if we go across this row and this row, we can see equivalent fractions would be 6/4, 9/6, 12/8, and so on. Finally, we can use this board to find lowest terms for specific fractions. So in this case, let's try to find the lowest terms for 16/20. So what you do is you look in a column and you try to find where 16 and 20 exist in the same column. So we just look down column number 4, and we can see 16 and 20 are in the same column. So 16/20, if we reduce in this direction, it reduces to 4/5. Now, just because the fraction 4/5 is in the left column does not mean that it will always be the lowest terms. Sometimes you have to take, for instance, in this case, let's say you reduced and you ended up with 8/10. That's in the far left column, but what we have to do is go up and see if higher on the chart we can find 8 and 10 in the same column. So we can see 8 and 10 are here in the same column, closest together. See here they're a little bit farther apart, so we know maybe we should check to see if we can reduce that fraction. So we come up into this column and we see 8 and 10, and we reduce towards the left, and that fraction would reduce to 4/5. We can also do the same thing for this final fraction, 32/64. So right here in this column number 8, we see 32 and 64, and we can reduce to the left. So we come all the way to the left, and we see 4/8, and they're still pretty far apart, so most likely that can reduce again. So let's look above in the chart to see if we can find 4 and 8 in the same column, and we look right here and we see 4/8, so we follow that and reduce, and it reduces to 1/2. So this is how we can use board number 3 for reducing fractions and also finding equivalent fractions for both improper and proper fractions.